So what I find a lot is that people are combining risk and uncertainty into the same thing, while in reality, for me at least, there are two very, very different things. And this is important because if we just face uncertainty, then it's very different than facing risk. So let me give you an example. So for me, risk is you have $100 and you make a bet, and you can either win $200 or you can lose $100, or you can win 120, you can lose 80, whatever the amount is. That is risk. That means you can end up worse off than you are today. Uncertainty, on the other hand, is you have $100, you bet those, and either you get $150, you get $200, or you get the same $100 back and you get $200. In other words, you cannot be worse off than you were before. We as human beings have an incredible uncertainty bias. That means we hate uncertainty. We try to do everything that we can to avoid it, even to the point where it actually costs us to avoid uncertainty. The issue becomes very big when we start to think of those two things as the same thing. So I'll give you an example. So a couple of years ago, I was recruiting a new CEO for one of our businesses. I was trying to get somebody out of a big consulting firm. And I'd probably given 5 offers to different people from this top-tier consulting firm before the 5th one took the offer. And when he took the offer, I said to him, why is it that everybody else is saying no when you actually said yes to this? And he said, look, Mass, the reason is very, very simple. It's because people are mistakenly thinking that uncertainty is actually risk. So here's how I think about it. He said, I think about it like this. If the company that we're going to do together becomes successful, it's a complete no-brainer for me to take this role. If it does not become successful, I have learned how to recruit, business develop. I have managed people. I have raised capital. I've done all these different things. That means that either I can go back to the existing company that I work for and I can actually get merit for the time that I've spent building this business. That means I can jump the actual years that I spent building this business. Or I can jump out and actually go and join another firm and actually be much better off than I would have working those extra years in the current company that I work in. In other words, he would be better off no matter what. That is for me uncertainty, when a lot of people look at that as risk. So what I highly recommend you to look at is try to look at things as uncertainty and risk. Figure out when is it risk and when is it uncertainty. And the definition, as I mentioned initially, comes down to, are you worse off if you make this particular decision? Or are you better off in any case? In which case, it probably is the right decision to make. So I think two concepts that people very often mistaken for each other and think that they're the same is causality and correlation. And so causality is when something causes something else. For example, if you eat less healthy, you're more likely to die younger, be more obese, have less energy, etc. Correlation, on the other hand, doesn't have to have causality. That means it just correlates with something. So an example of this is that research shows that if you sleep until 10 or 11 in the morning instead of waking up early, you're going to live a shorter life. Now, are you going to live a shorter life because you wake up at 10 or 11? Or are the people who wake up at 10 or 11 more likely to live a less healthy life and therefore die younger? I don't know what the real truth is behind that, but understanding the difference between whether something causes something or whether it just correlates is really important in whether it's human resources, recruiting, marketing, campaigns, understanding what works on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever it can be in your world. So understand the difference between causality and correlation is key. So one of the things you'll find quite often is that people discuss things in different ways. That means they argue in different ways. Some people are very forthcoming, fighting, boom, goes full in for their purpose. And other people are very withdrawn. Some people are very compromising. Some people are very soothing. Some people completely avoid the fight whenever they have a discussion. Now, all these fighting types really stem down from one simple trade-off. And a lot of people miss that when they're thinking about discussions. And that's a trade-off between, on one hand, the topic, the goal, the purpose, and on the other hand, the relationship. That means the way that different people discuss things in different ways are fundamentally just their trade-off between how much am I going to care about the relationship on one hand, and how much am I going to go in and fight for the issue and the goal that I believe in. Now, what you have to recognize is that people are different there. For some people, they're very afraid of the relationship getting hurt by fighting for something. So one of the things they will do is they will usually avoid the fight. They will compromise when they actually don't believe in the compromise. They will even soothe, or they will completely go the other way and just, avoid the fight altogether. Other people, on the other hand, will go full throttle. They'll go in and they'll fight and they'll discuss and argue for what they believe in, because either on one hand, they don't the relationship will not get hurt in their view. That means not that they don't care about the relationship, but that they simply don't think it's actually going to get hurt, and therefore that they can discuss without anything happening to the relationship. I find that very often that some people are saying, well, we just had a fight and our relationship is broken now, when in reality I may think about that and just say, well, it wasn't anything about relationship, we were just discussing a particular issue. When you meet people who have different fighting styles than you, I highly encourage you to adapt to that. So for example, if you're big on fighting in discussions, that means you're really arguing your case and you dare to go full throttle in that. Be aware that other people are not like that. And by going full throttle first and foremost, the people who are more compromising and the few people who like to avoid fights are not going to actually tell you what they think. So if you have a full throttle fighting discussion style, think about going last. That means don't argue, don't tell anyone your opinion until everybody else has said their opinion. That means you ask very objective and open questions to them. What do you mean when you say this? How do you think about it? I want to hear more, I want to know more, before you actually start to tell them what you think, because the minute that you tell them what you think, a person who's very compromising, soothing, or avoiding will tend to either shut up, or they will tend to agree with you, at least verbally, whether or not they agree internally. And that means you'll both lose out on a committed team member, but honestly, you'll also lose out on their incredible feedback. So this is really the trade-off at the end of the day, and discussion triumphs between, on one hand, the issue and the goal, and on the other hand, the relationship.